We've committed to a fair jobs code for community service organisations, and that's why we've put in this budget $15 million to assist the sector to transition to the code. We want to make sure that each of your organisations commit to standardised work practices and to secure work where possible. We're prepared to incentivise the transition to support your organisations to commit to this code through fair and appropriate rate of indexation. So our government will continue to support the important work that you all do, and that support, of course, must extend to your workforce. We'll do this in close collaboration with the sector to ensure a code that works for all fairly. Of course, we start that work with that $15 million transition to the Fair Jobs Code, but I would be the first to acknowledge that that would be far from adequate to get to where we need to go. So this is an opportunity really for greater collaboration with the sector, and I'm looking forward to working with you all.
I appreciate your comments in relation to indexation and the preparedness to look at the rate. We're all under severe cost pressures, and it's really important that we get to a point where we're funded fairly. Just interested, given that we're preparing our budgets at the moment, what is the time frame in terms of looking at that increase?
As soon as we can, quite frankly. I mean, I'd like to have discussions with the sector, and I want this to be a tripartite type arrangement. I want the relevant unions to have a say as well about what constitutes a fair jobs code, and whether or not we've provisioned adequately for this industry to make that commitment as well. So it's obviously going to be more than we've provisioned at the moment. I'd like to see exactly how far apart the CSOs and the unions are to see if we can, and what their respective expectations of a jobs code looks like too, because it may well be that the expectations are too high in certain respects from the union movement, at least in the short term, for it to be achievable by some of the employers. So how do we go through a system that gets us to what are fair practices in this industry? So it'll take as long or as little as it's needed, but I would hope, given that these discussions have been going on for, I don't know, 12 months now, that we should be able to get to a point. And I understand that that means that the state is going to have to provision more for it. We put $15 million aside to assist those who want to do some of the leading and apply for a capacity to make the transition, but we recognise that there's going to be a need for some ongoing funding as a consequence of what a completed package looks like. Can't really put any dollars around that until I know exactly what the commitment to the code looks like, and whether or not we've got a tripartite agreement. That is, whether the unions see it as value, whether we as a government see it as value. But look, I don't have any great expectations that this should take too long. I would probably hope that we could knock it over inside 6 weeks.
And your comments about indexation and helping us deal with input costs are really welcome. But the other factor, though, is community need. And so in 2021, we were distributing a tonne a day of food relief through the 400 neighbourhood houses in Victoria. This year that's increased to 9 tonnes a day. And so my question is, will you look at, so whether ongoing funding programs, will you look at increases over and above indexation where you can demonstrate that there's an extreme community need?
Look, I think the best way to deal with those issues of peaks in demand, and I'm not going to pretend that we're perfect in being able to see where across the economy there are areas of growing demand where we think, given the phase down from the pandemic spend is needed to be maintained and in some circumstances extended. So we're always happy to have a conversation about those matters, whether you think we've adequately provisioned for it. And quite frankly, we'll listen if we think that there's going to be some hardship in the community as a consequence of choices that we've made that work against your organisation doing the vitally important work that you do. So happy to have a conversation, can't guarantee you an outcome, But the one thing I hope people in this industry understand is when we say we want to talk, we want a partnership, we mean that quite genuinely. And like if we have made an error, if we haven't picked up a trend that's working adverse to the interest of the community, well, we'll do what we can to rectify it.